Accepting what you cannot control is a fundamental principle in Stoicism and one of the hardest lessons in life to grasp. We are taught from a young age to pursue, to push, to strive, to make things happen. And while there is strength in ambition, there is also wisdom in knowing when to release our grip on things that simply aren't within our power. This means recognizing that no matter how much we care for someone, no matter how much we wish for a different outcome, there are forces at work beyond us, forces in the hearts and minds of others that we simply cannot control. We can't control how someone feels about us. We can't control their decisions, their actions, or their behaviors. Trying to do so only leads to frustration, heartache, and exhaustion. How many sleepless nights have you spent replaying conversations, wishing you'd said this or done that, thinking it would change the outcome? How many times have you tried to make someone see your worth, to make them love you the way you deserve? But let me tell you, all the effort, all the will in the world cannot bend the heart of another person. People will do what they do. They will feel how they feel, and no amount of reasoning, pleading, or convincing can change that. The truth is, when we try to control what we can't, we set ourselves up for disappointment. We become prisoners to expectations that were never ours to manage in the first place. We start living our lives based on someone else's decisions, waiting for them to change, to validate us, to give us the love or attention we crave. But Stoicism teaches us that true peace comes from releasing that need for control, from acknowledging that there are forces in this world, including the minds and hearts of others, that are beyond our influence. When you accept this reality, you free yourself. Free from the anxiety of trying to fix what isn't yours to fix. Free from the constant emotional roller coaster of waiting for someone else to behave a certain way. Free from the fear of rejection because you understand that their rejection has nothing to do with your value. It has to do with their own journey, their own emotions, their own perspective. You can't control that. What you can control is how you respond. What you can control is your own mind, your own choices, your own peace. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It doesn't mean you give up or stop caring. It means you recognize the line between what is within your power and what is not, and you choose to focus on what you can control, yourself, your actions, your growth. It's about letting go of the need to manage outcomes that aren't yours to manage in the first place. It's about releasing the mental burden that comes from trying to force someone else's hand, and in that release, you find strength. This is not easy. Letting go of control can feel like letting go of hope, like surrendering to uncertainty. But here's the thing, when you stop trying to control what you cannot, you make room for something greater. You make room for peace, for clarity, for the realization that your worth is not tied to someone else's decisions or emotions. You are not less because they don't see you. You are not lacking because they don't choose you. You are simply outside the sphere of control where their choices reside, and that is okay. It is not a reflection of you, but of the natural limits of human influence. Focusing on your own growth is not about turning your back on others, nor is it about shutting down emotionally. It's about redirecting the energy you've been investing in someone else back into yourself. Too often we pour ourselves out for others, our time, our attention, our emotional reserves, and in the process, we lose sight of the person who should matter the most in our lives, ourselves. When you're so focused on someone else, waiting for them to change, to notice, to appreciate you, it's easy to neglect your own growth, your own dreams, your own development. But life, my friends, is not about staying stuck, waiting for someone to fill the void inside of you. It's about continuously becoming the person you were destined to be. Personal growth is a journey, and it requires consistent nurturing, effort, and focus. Think about the energy you've been using trying to understand someone else's behavior, trying to fix a relationship that might not be fixable. Imagine what could happen if you took all of that energy and turned it inward toward your own development. You have passions, you have goals, dreams, talents that may have been lying dormant while you've been consumed with someone else's life. What if you took the time to develop those passions, to dive into that dream you've been putting off, or to hone a skill that could take you to new heights? What if you spent less time analyzing someone else's actions and more time strengthening your mind, your spirit, your body? You would become unstoppable. The truth is, the more you invest in yourself, the stronger and more centered you become. You begin to realize that your value is not dependent on how someone else treats you, but on how you treat yourself. You begin to see that your worth is not tied to a relationship or someone else's approval, but to your own self-respect, your own achievements, and the peace you find within. When you focus on your growth, you start to attract better opportunities, better people, better experiences, because you've elevated yourself to a higher place. And let me tell you something about growth. It's not always easy. It requires you to step out of your comfort zone, to face your fears, to challenge your old ways of thinking. It asks you to be honest with yourself about where you've been stuck, where you've been stagnant. But this is the work that leads to real transformation. When you commit to your own growth, you stop looking for someone else to fill the gaps in your life. You become the source of your own strength, your own happiness, your own fulfillment. This shift in focus doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop placing your entire sense of self in their hands. You stop waiting for someone else to make you feel whole, because you're doing the work to make yourself whole. Growth is a continuous process, one that requires dedication and patience, but it's the most rewarding journey you can ever embark on. The more you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, the less power anyone else will have to determine your emotional well-being. As you grow, you'll find that you have more clarity, more resilience, more inner peace. You'll stop being so reactive to what others say or do, because your sense of self is grounded in your own progress. And as you continue to evolve, you'll realize that the relationships and situations that once caused you so much pain no longer hold the same weight. You'll outgrow the need for validation from those who couldn't see your worth. You'll outgrow the need to cling to people who weren't contributing to your growth. Practice negative visualization is a powerful Stoic exercise that teaches us to mentally prepare for loss, hardship, and the reality of life's uncertainties. It's about confronting the possibility of losing the very things or people we hold dear, not to make us bitter or pessimistic, but to cultivate resilience and a deeper appreciation for what we have while we have it. In relationships especially, we often cling so tightly to someone that we become afraid to even imagine life without them. Negative visualization forces us to face that fear head on, to picture a world where the relationship doesn't exist, where the person is no longer part of our everyday reality. At first glance, it might seem cruel or harsh to consider such scenarios, but the wisdom behind this practice is profound. You see, when you visualize what it would be like to lose someone, it doesn't make you love them less. It allows you to prepare your mind for the inevitable changes and challenges that life will throw at you. It's not about being cold or detached in the negative sense, but about fostering emotional strength and readiness. Life is unpredictable. People come and go. Relationships evolve, and sometimes they end. To practice negative visualization is to accept the impermanence of everything, and in doing so, strengthen your ability to cope with change. Now, when you take time to imagine a world where that person is no longer present, something interesting happens. You begin to realize that you can still exist, that you can still function and even thrive without them. It's not about numbing yourself or shutting down emotionally. It's about recognizing that your sense of self, your worth, and your life's purpose are not dependent on any one person or relationship. This practice brings clarity. It shows you that while people may be significant parts of your life, they are not the sole reason for your existence. Think of it like this. You're walking down a path, and along the way, you meet someone who walks with you for a time. That person may bring joy, love, companionship, but at some point, they may choose another path. Negative visualization helps you prepare for that moment, so when it comes, you're not devastated because you've already mentally prepared yourself. It doesn't catch you off guard. You've already allowed yourself to see the possibility, and in doing so, you've lessened the emotional shock that might otherwise overwhelm you. And let's be clear, this isn't about dwelling on worst-case scenarios or living in fear of what could go wrong. It's about balance. Negative visualization reminds us that everything in life, including relationships, is temporary. By acknowledging this fact, you not only protect yourself from the pain of unexpected loss, but also deepen your appreciation for what you have while you still have it. When you imagine life without that person, you realize how precious each moment is, and you stop taking them for granted. You become more present, more grateful, more intentional with your time and energy. This practice is especially useful when we find ourselves becoming overly dependent on someone else for our happiness or stability. By imagining life without them, you force yourself to acknowledge that you are fully capable of standing on your own 2 feet. It's a mental exercise that strengthens your emotional independence. You begin to see that while their presence may enrich your life, it is not the foundation of your existence. You are whole on your own, and you can face whatever life brings your way, even if that means navigating the world without them by your side. Negative visualization also helps us confront our deepest fears. Often we avoid thinking about loss or separation because the very thought of it terrifies us. But by avoiding those thoughts, we don't make them any less real. What we resist only grows stronger. Instead, by practicing this visualization, we take control of our fears, face them head on, and learn to live with the reality that nothing in life is guaranteed. The more we confront the idea of loss, the less power it has over us. We stop being paralyzed by the fear of what could happen, and instead we empower ourselves to live fully, knowing that we are prepared for whatever may come. Choosing reason over emotion is the central tenet of Stoic philosophy, and it's one of the most liberating practices we can adopt in our lives. We live in a world where emotions often run high, where relationships, conflicts, and even everyday interactions can trigger intense emotional reactions. And while emotions are a natural part of being human, the Stoics remind us that emotions, if left unchecked, can lead us astray. They can cloud our judgment, distort our perspective, and push us to act in ways that don't align with our true values. When you're in the midst of an emotional storm, whether it's anger, jealousy, sadness, or even excitement, it's easy to lose control. You might find yourself reacting impulsively, saying things you don't mean, or making decisions that you later regret. This is what happens when emotion takes the will and drives your actions. But Stoicism teaches us that in every situation we have a choice. We can either be swept away by our emotions, or we can pause, take a step back, and choose to respond with reason. To choose reason over emotion is to remain calm in the face of adversity. It's about grounding yourself in logic and clarity, no matter how chaotic the situation may seem. When you're confronted with emotional triggers, whether it's a heated argument, a painful breakup, or an unexpected disappointment, the Stoic practice is to take a breath and ask yourself, what is the rational response here? What is the right action based on my principles, not based on how I feel in this moment? This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions, but rather it means not letting them control you. Emotion by its very nature is fleeting. It rises up, it feels intense, and then it fades. But in that moment of intensity, it can feel all-consuming. It can make you believe that the world is crumbling around you or that the situation is worse than it really is. But when you lean into reason, you gain perspective. You begin to see the situation for what it truly is, not just what it feels like in the heat of the moment. You start to analyze the facts, to look at things objectively, and to respond in a way that aligns with your higher self. One of the most powerful aspects of choosing reason over emotion is that it allows you to maintain control of your own mind. You stop being at the mercy of external events or other people's behavior. When someone disappoints you, angers you, or hurts you, your immediate emotional response might be to lash out, to defend yourself, or to retaliate. But Stoicism encourages us to pause in that moment and ask, what good will come from reacting this way? Will it bring me closer to peace, or will it only deepen the conflict? When you ask these questions, you begin to see that most emotional reactions only escalate the problem. They lead to more pain, more confusion, and more chaos. Reason, on the other hand, brings clarity. It allows you to see things from a higher vantage point. It helps you separate your emotions from the facts of the situation. You might feel hurt by someone's words, but reason allows you to step back and ask, is their behavior truly about me, or is it a reflection of something they're going through? You might feel betrayed by someone's actions, but reason asks you to consider, is my response rooted in reality, or am I letting my emotions exaggerate the situation? This ability to pause, reflect, and choose a reasoned response is what gives you the upper hand in every situation. When you choose reason over emotion, you also free yourself from the roller coaster of emotional reactions that can drain your energy and peace of mind. Life is full of ups and downs. And if we allow every high and every low to dictate our emotional state, we become unstable, constantly tossed around by the tides of circumstance. But reason is like an anchor. It keeps you grounded, steady, and centered no matter what's happening around you. Even when others are acting irrationally, even when the world seems to be falling apart, you remain calm because you've chosen to respond with wisdom, not with impulse. It's important to remember that choosing reason over emotion is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending they don't exist. It's about acknowledging your emotions, understanding where they come from, and then making a conscious choice to act based on what's rational and constructive. Emotions, when processed through reason, can actually serve as valuable information. They can alert you to something that needs attention, but the key is to let reason guide your response. Instead of reacting emotionally, you use reason to channel your energy in a positive and productive direction. This practice also helps you build emotional resilience. The more you train yourself to pause and choose reason over emotion, the more you develop the ability to stay calm in stressful or emotionally charged situations. You become less reactive and more thoughtful, less controlled by external circumstances, and more grounded in your internal compass. And this in turn strengthens your relationships, your decision-making, and your overall sense of peace. In conclusion, emotionally detaching from someone through the lens of Stoicism empowers you to reclaim your peace, strength, and self-worth by accepting what you cannot control, focusing on your own growth, practicing negative visualization, and choosing reason over emotion. You build resilience and clarity. These Stoic principles don't harden your heart, but sharpen your mind, helping you find balance in the chaos of emotions and relationships. Detachment is not about indifference. It's about creating space for inner peace and personal growth, knowing that you are whole, strong, and capable regardless of what happens around you.